Thanks, Ewan. And just to carry on with the Love Fest, aren't we lucky that we gave him a little bit of training and he's able to do this for us? So it's pretty awesome. What goes around comes around. When I was preparing for today, I was reminded of a conversation I had back when we first launched Breathe. I was talking to my business coach at the time, and he asked me one of those coaching questions. You know the kind of question where there's no answer. And he said to me, Jonathan, when will you know that Breathe is a success? I didn't know. I fumbled around trying to come up with something, and I said 300. When we've got 300 companies successfully using Breathe to manage their people. And here we are just a little bit time forward, and there's nearly 300 of you in the room, which is awesome. So, I cannot say how proud it makes me feel of the team at Breathe, and how grateful I am to you all for coming in today. And what I wanted to do to kick off the afternoon is just to go back a little bit into how Breathe was formed and how we've ended up at this point with the idea around people first. I'm realizing I'm standing here without a clicker. So a little over 8 years ago, we started Breathe, and I'm a big believer that most businesses start in one of three places. They start in a pub, they start in a coffee shop, or here they start in a curry house. Breathe was founded over a curry. It was a good curry as well. My business partner Gareth and I, we've been working together for, nearly 10 years. We were running a company that implemented big HR systems. So if you had 1,000 employees, we'd come along, we'd create the system for you. The team would go in and implement it, we'd support it, and everybody was happy. We charge you £50,000 to £100,000 for it, and that was job done. But when we got together, we realized that we needed to take the business somewhere else. We were tired, we all worked incredibly hard, we weren't inspired by the business anymore. So we talked about it for quite a while, and then finally it all came to a head one evening, and we decided we needed to get together and just sit down and thrash this out. We looked at a map. This curry house was almost directly in between where we lived. So we sat down at the table, all nicely, freshly laid out, and by the end of the evening we had a classic back of a napkin business plan for setting up Breathe. So now, the original plan for Breathe was centered around something actually very straightforward, something very simple. We decided that there just had to be a better way to manage people inside a small business. We've been doing it for big businesses. We knew we could do it for £100,000, but could we do it for a small business that clearly didn't have that level of resource? And more importantly, didn't even have the dedicated HR teams to do it. So we set off with this idea of there just has to be a better way. The small team that we had, there were 4 of us at the start. We beavered away to try and create the system. My initial drive was to create a system at double quick time. So I said to Gareth, you go away, work with the developers. I'll sit in a coffee shop, create the marketing, create the website, put the rest of the business together. And just over 5 months later, we launched. So from first line of code to actually to the first customer signing was 5 months. And in fact, the day we pushed the go live button, we had a customer sign within an hour. Which was amazing because it wasn't even my mum. So our driving force of finding a better way. Things moved on. I remember distinctly celebrating 100 customers, 200 customers. We celebrated both of those with cake, and that set an important trend for the way we live and breathe at Breathe. It's food, so we're food-based. So we had a 100 cake, we had a 200 cake, we had a 500 cake, and at that point we thought the cake's getting too big. We have to stop. So at that point we moved on to cupcakes. But then also, as the company grew, we got to around about 1,000 customers using the system, and we figured that we had to move on ourselves as a business. We had to, humbly, we thought we might have found the better way. And actually what we really wanted to do was to reach more organizations. So we took it another step forward. I'm standing right in the middle of the picture. So when we really dug down with that, we decided that what we needed to do was to scale the business. We were all about HR admin, around the admin of having employees, and our goal was really to automate that for as many companies as possible. So when we reached 1,000 companies, we moved it on a bit. We moved offices. We moved offices for 12 people. We moved out of that office 2 years later, just under 2 years later, with 24 people. And really the process has carried on since then. I mentioned earlier on we have 8,000 companies across the UK using Breathe to manage their 250,000 employees, and that number is growing fast. It's actually growing fast every month by every month. So then we reached the point, maybe a couple of years ago, when we started to say, look, we're building a great community around the system. We've got a lot of awesome companies that are using it. What are the needs of those companies? What is it that makes a really successful, thriving company different from one that maybe is having trouble? And we found that that was all around the culture of the organization. And that's really where people first came in. We saw that the organizations who put their people first were the ones that were actually thriving. They were the ones that made it through the recessions. They were the ones that were constantly growing. And more importantly, they were the ones where you walk in through the front door of the office and you can feel it. You don't know what it is, but there's something you feel when you walk into an organization where they put their people first. And actually for us, people first is all about this. Now it's a phrase that we're constantly looking to build on and to understand. But if as an organization you create happy and healthy people, employees, then you have a productive workplace. The three go hand in hand, and my feeling is that you shouldn't run a successful business without having those three hand in hand. And Lord knows we hear there's that wonderful phrase of the productivity puzzle. The government talk about the productivity puzzle. Why isn't the UK more productive? And they've come up with various different reasons, but one of them is all around management and leadership and the way businesses are run. And the other one is around the people that work in the organisation. And aren't those two linked? So people first, happy, healthy and productive workplaces. One of the things I was asked as we were over lunch was, am I going to stand up here and define culture? No, I'm not going to be that brave, I'm afraid. Culture is such a multifaceted animal that it is very hard to tie down, but we're on a journey to try and help businesses build their culture, improve their culture, and therefore make themselves more productive, more successful. When it comes to people first, though, I believe that there are 4 simple elements to creating a people first culture, okay? The first one is every single person that works for our companies wants to be treated in exactly the same way. They want to be treated as individuals. And if we can treat them as individuals, if we can accept them as individuals and embrace them as individuals, then that is a huge step along the way to creating what we call a people-first culture. Next step is all about communicating, but more importantly, communicating with our people as an organisation, communicating as adults. So there's a really popular model, I can't remember who it was by, Marcus or Ian will be able to tell you, but the idea of communicating adult to adult. And for me, communicating in an organisation as an adult is including our people in the discussions very early on. So getting people involved in the planning, getting people to share with you what they're feeling. It's sharing a genuine moment with the people that work for us. And that's the key word, genuine. If we can get some genuine communication going on as an organisation, then we're starting to move places. We're starting to get somewhere. There we go, that's better. Third is engaging and meaningful work. And that's possibly the harder one to get head around. What is engaging and meaningful work? And that's something that I think you know when you've got it. Now, there's There's a lot of talk and a lot of research around being in flow. People know when they've got engaging and meaningful work, but how do we give it to them? And again, I think the starting point with that is once you've understood a little bit about the individual, then you can start, giving them work that suits them in a style that suits them, but equally some of the most progressive organizations that we talk to start to have the people in the organization working on what work they want to do. Because very often, what do I know about how to run a support desk? The people that run our support desk are the ones that know it the best, so they're the ones that actually should be teaching me how to run a support desk. So it's as I say, it's giving people work that not only is pulling towards a central purpose for the organization, but is actually something that they get true value out of. And then lastly, it's all about reward. Okay, so giving them a fair reward for the contribution they're making. And by reward, I don't mean money. Yes, people need money to live and money's important. But actually for me, the reward that a person needs comes back to their individuality again. Everybody needs slightly different things from an organization. The money needs to be there, the money needs to be correct, but actually the true reward for most people that are working for us comes from other things. And I know the speakers we got this afternoon will cover some more of that. So anyway, just to sort of trip back to the story, there we are. We've come up with the idea of people first. We're trying to understand a little bit more about company culture. We launched Breathe as the product, as I said, a little bit under 8 years ago. We've got companies using it. We continue to develop it. Our mission there very much is to take away the admin from a small business so that the leaders in that business can actually concentrate on actually the real magic, which is the one-to-one interactions, where I'm talking about treating people as individuals. So we've seen some good results from that. Along the way, we've found other areas of people-related admin that we need to be able to help. So we've introduced expense management, we've introduced recruitment, and we're looking to introduce other tools. But one of the things that I'm really excited to announce is that as of the 1st of April, we're launching Breathe Rota. So Breathe Rota is very much under the same ethos as the other Breathe software products, in that it's intended to be incredibly simple to use. It's not the all singing, all dancing, rotoring or rostering system that some of the big hotel chains would use, or maybe some of the big coffee shops. But what it's all about is helping an organization move away from spreadsheets, helping them move away from basic messaging, and actually getting the right people to know that they're needed into work at a certain time. So we're launching on the 1st of April. We're looking for organizations that are prepared to join with us to act as beta users. The system's fully functioning as of day one, but what we want to do is to get it out into the marketplace and to get some real users trying the system. Because we think we've done a good job, but actually the proof of the pudding is when we get it out into organizations like yours. So if you're interested in taking a look and maybe in joining the beta program, then please, anybody who's wearing a Breathe t-shirt, or one or two of us that aren't, come and have a chat with us and we'll get you some information. When we started the culture journey in Breathe, we then moved on from the software products and we commissioned the Culture Economy Report. So I think we've got some copies maybe in the room. If not, we've got it available for download. But the Culture Economy Report we commissioned, and we set the requirement for that was we wanted to understand, A, what was culture like in small businesses across the UK, and B, what could we do to help improve company culture in small businesses. Two things came out of it that were staggering to me. The first was, and we had this number checked and double-checked and treble-checked, £23.6 billion worth of productivity is lost in the UK that can be directly accreditable to poor company culture. Now, when I first saw that, my accountant kicked in and said, yeah, okay, that's just a market research number. Apologies to anybody who's in market research. But we sent them away again and said, look, really double check this number. And they came back to us and proved that it was slightly low. And what this is all about is where something can be attributable to bad leadership or lack of planning or lack of team communication. So it was a staggering number, and all the calculations, we've been very open with the calculations. So that was the first thing. The second thing was we launched the Breathe Culture Pledge. And the Breathe Culture Pledge is all about getting organizations to stand up and say, we pledge to commit to company culture, to start talking with our teams about company culture. We've got over 500 organizations who've signed to that, and we're going to put a big investment into that over the coming years. So I'd ask you, or suggest, please look out for that. We'd love to have more companies signing. And then the last thing that we did last year was, so we've run it twice now, is the Culture Leaders List. So the Culture Leaders List for us is all about showcasing organizations that have done awesome things with their businesses to make them great places to work, but also have thrived because of it. Now, I had the pleasure of being on the judging panel for that last year, and some of the stories that came forward were inspiring. So we've got the Breathe Cultures list. We published the top 25. We're very lucky to have 3 of the winners here today with us, and they're going to be taking part on the panel. So I'd encourage you to tap into their wisdom over the break and just to find out what they've done. But more than anything else, for the rest of the day or the rest of the afternoon, I would say, please take some inspiration from the speakers. I've heard both of our keynote speakers many times before. They've got some great content to share with us. I hope it sparks some conversations and that you take some nuggets away with you back to your organizations. So with that, that's enough from me. I will hand over.